Well, hello, folks out there in YouTube land. Got a very interesting show for you. Yep, we're going to go behind enemy lines, and we're going to talk about the top 4 concerns the Texas A&M Aggies have about the Vols and everything that's going on. And I went behind enemy lines, which is, as you know, very dangerous. I had to be really careful, especially in Texas. That's right. And I'll tell you what, had they caught me, I would have been interrogated almost certainly.
I wasn't going to give you the 3rd degree, but now you're going to get it. And don't you try and stop me, Andy. Now!
Yep. And nobody wants that. But I got a couple of YouTube channels. I'm going to show you some of the clips of it that'll let you know what Texas A&M folks are concerned about when it comes to the Vols and what they're concerned about with their own team. And it's really the top 4 that we'll be discussing. And this first fella is Locked On Aggies, and he's actually very knowledgeable, and he hits the nail on the head several times here.
We knew the offensive line was bad on Saturday, but wait till you hear these numbers. Travis Brown put out some interesting stats that really bring it to light just how bad the offensive line was on Saturday.
And what he's talking about there is PFF numbers, basically grading the offensive line for Texas Aggies. And they had one player that graded pretty well. He had like a 70, 71, but the rest of them were under 50, and one guy had a 17, which is super low. They really had a tough time. They got sacked. Their quarterback got sacked 5 times, which was really bad. Plus, they had a ton of pressure on them the entire time. So needless to say, one of their 4 concerns is Texas A&M's offensive line and dealing with Tennessee. And here he'll talk about Max Johnson dealing with a poor offensive line and how he was able to play through it as best he could.
Max Johnson, I know there were some throws he would have liked back in this ball game. There were some throws that us Aggie fans would have liked him to have back. But, I mean, the dude was under pressure the entire football game. I feel bad for him, you know.
And as you can also see, Texas A&M, these are the rushing numbers. They only had 67, and that's a 1.9 average. So that had a lot to do with their offensive line as well. So they didn't give Max Johnson much time to throw, and the running backs didn't have much room to run. So the offensive line is definitely concerning for Texas A&M. And it's, you know, after seeing Tennessee, the way they handled South Carolina and the pressure they put on Spencer Rattler, who's a pretty mobile quarterback, that's a big-time concern they've got. Now, one other thing they're concerned about, and this is a big concern, is having a letdown. Look, once you've played Alabama, that was a huge game for Texas A&M in the West. They had a chance to take control of their own destiny and really put Alabama behind the 8 ball, and they didn't do it because they were already 2-0 in the SEC. They beat Arkansas and Auburn. Had they beaten Alabama, they were in the driver's seat in the West. But instead, they lost to Alabama. Now Bama's in the driver's seat, and now they've got to hope Bama loses twice, which is a rare thing for Bama to do in the SEC, especially when they've already got 1 loss. That would mean they'd have to have 3 losses this year, 2 of which would be in the SEC. So Aggies are probably realizing that the SEC championship playoff or anything like that is probably out the window. So it would be real easy to have a letdown, especially going into Neyland Stadium, which is just going to be on fire. It's going to be difficult. And you've got a Josh Heupel offense and team that's coming off a bye week, and he's 7-1 after a bye week. So this Vols team will be very ready for this game. And I don't know how ready the Aggies will be after such a tough loss, 26-20, a game they could have won at College Station. They had every advantage. Alabama had 8 false starts. That's tough. That puts you behind the sticks 8 separate times, which is a huge advantage for the Aggies, and they just weren't able to take advantage of it enough. You know, they played a good game, but they just couldn't do it because they couldn't protect their quarterback and they couldn't get any running lanes. So having a letdown is very possible, especially when you've got a coach that's been on the hot seat and people have been kind of down on.
Get ready to go for the 2024 season. Then you can be the guy or the person who's like, oh, well, let's just lose all these games and get a new coach and start this thing over. I don't want that. And here's my reason why. Look at this recruiting class. Now, I get you could argue, you could say, well, we have good recruiting class every year. You have a great recruiting class. You have an easy 2024 schedule. If this goes bad, if you lose to Tennessee on Saturday and then oh, somehow you drop one to Mississippi State or South Carolina, and then and this thing just goes really south really fast, you're going to lose players into the portal. If Coach Fisher gets fired, you're going to lose all this talent to the portal, and you're going to lose probably 60, 70, 80% of this talent committed in the 2024 class. I mean, you are going to be in serious trouble fielding a competitive team next year.
Yeah, so this is something they've been dealing with. Last year going 5-7 was such a quality team as far as talent. People are getting a little bit tired of it, and I don't know why in the world they did a 10-year deal with him. That made no sense. That extension was totally unnecessary, and now they're having to deal with it because turning around, you owe him like 70, 80 million bucks, even if you fired him after next year. That's crazy. That's a crazy amount of money. So it's tough, and he's 100% right. They would lose a ton of talent in transfer portal. I can tell you it'd be real fast because when Pruitt left, what talent we had took off, and how in the world Josh Heupel's turned this thing around so well is kind of remarkable, really. That doesn't happen very often. So I'm going to have to agree with him on that. But having a letdown would be very difficult, and he can tell they're teetering right now. Losing that big game would be real easy for them to sort of cash in their chips a little bit. But, man, this is a big game for him. It's a big game for us too. But anyway, I thought that was pretty interesting what he's talking about there, and he's dead right about it. Now he's going to talk about the Vols' defensive line, which I think is the third thing they're concerned about, that defensive line.
They create a lot of sacks, and they don't allow a lot of sacks. This Tennessee team is good in the trenches. They are good in the trenches. Last week was Tennessee's bye week, so they've played 5 games. They have 22 sacks, which is one of the best numbers based on sacks per game in college football. They're right up there with Texas A&M, but Texas A&M's played that extra game to where the sacks per game is even. That is obviously concerning, knowing what we just discussed with this offensive line, what we just discussed with this offense. This Tennessee team is going to get pressure. So you have 1 week to get the issues figured out. You have 1 week to get on tape, watch the tape, and say, okay, what went wrong against Alabama?
And now he's going to talk about the fourth thing that they're concerned about, which is Neyland Stadium, which is really, in my opinion, just as big as anything of the four. Neyland Stadium is going to be on fire at 3:30 Saturday. Coming off a bye week, people are hungry. This is a big game for us. Texas A&M is a big name, so is Tennessee, and we don't play them very often. It's really rare. So there's just a whole lot going into this game that is going to make the fan base in Knoxville a little bit crazy. And we know it doesn't take much to get them excited, especially in their checkerboard in the stadium. It's going to be fun. But let's see what he has to say about Neyland Stadium.
The Aggies open as 3-point dogs in this game. Makes sense. Road game. I was not expecting the Aggies to be favored in this game. I have a feeling, if I had to guess, that line might actually move more in Tennessee's favor just based on the fact that it's a home game. That atmosphere is crazy. We all know that. ESPN FPI gives the Aggies a 43.2% chance to win this game. That's been right around where it has been the whole year. To start the season, I think it's gotten better in favor of the Aggies, but still, obviously FPI really values home field advantage. And so knowing how much they value home field advantage, the fact that they still have Texas A&M give them a 43.2% chance to win this game makes you feel like they really do have a shot to win this one.
Now, here's a group. It's called a Texas Aggies Radio, which must be some kind of big dogs because they got Paul Feinbaum on the show, and they're obviously pretty well heeled. But anyway, this is the first time I've ever seen this channel. We don't cover Texas A&M very much, so this is kind of new for me too. But they had a very interesting question. They're talking about this game as being very important.
Perspective on this, could this be the biggest game in Jimbo's tenure at A&M, considering what just happened and what is still capable for this program this year?
It's one thing that, you go out there and you win at Kentucky or South Carolina, just for the sake of argument. Winning at Tennessee, you don't need to be multilingual to understand that. You don't need an interpreter to tell you what that means. That's self-explanatory. It's a big win, and right now I think Jimbo needs big wins just to kind of get out of this middle ground and move forward.
So you've become a pretty good team when they're saying a game against you, it could be one of the biggest games Jimbo Fisher's ever had, being at Texas A&M. And beating Tennessee at Neyland is really hard to do. We're 12-0 there. Over the last 12 games, we've not lost. So it would be a big win for Texas A&M because, look, they can say it's 5 points or 3 points advantage playing at home. Neyland is way more than that. It's about a 10-point advantage. There's a reason we're 12-0 there. So anyway, I think they understand that Neyland is a big part of this, and it's going to be tough. They're going to have a tough time. Now, our big concern is going to be the Texas Aggies' defensive line. It's probably the best in the SEC, which means it's the best in the nation. They're hard to run against. The quarterback has a tough time finding time to throw because they put a lot of pressure on the quarterback. Now, their defensive backfield's not great. We can absolutely hurt them back there, but it's hard to do that if they're putting a lot of pressure on you. And if we're not able to run the ball, it's going to not set up the pass. So spreading out that defense, getting the ball in space is going to be really important. That's something the Tennessee Vols do really, really well. I think we'll have some success on the ground. It's not going to be like we did against South Carolina, but I think we'll have some success. But we will need to hurt them in the air as well. We're not going to be able to run our way solely to win this game. That's not going to happen against the Aggies. They're too good up front, but this is a very winnable game for the Vols. I expect us to win this game, but it's going to be tough. There's so much going into this. You know, you've got the letdown coming from Alabama game. The Vols have had a bye week. The crowd's going to be on fire, but Texas A&M's got the talent to do it. It's just a matter of what will their mindset be. And I'm having a tough time finding anybody at Texas A&M that feels like they're going to show up fired up. Now, they might when it first gets going, but if we can get them going in the wrong direction, we could get them to pack it in. I don't know if that'll happen. They might fight us all the way to the end. But this is a big game for them and a big game for us. So I thought it'd be interesting to see what their concerns were there in Texas A&M land. And they're about what I expected. And, you know, they're not confident going in this game. We're a little more confident, but I think that has more to do with Neyland and having a bye week than anything else. So this is going to be a great game. I'm really excited about it. It's going to be really fun. I'm glad it's 3:30, not noon. Noon would have stunk. 7 would have been perfect, but 3:30 is pretty good. People are usually about in the right spirits come 3:30.
You fellas been doing a bit of boozing, have you? Sucking back on Grandpa's old cough medicine?
No, oh no, sir. No.
Especially in Knoxville. But anyway, I just wanted to go behind enemy lines, kind of see what those folks are thinking there in Texas and get an idea of what they're concerned about. And if you like this content, be sure to hit that like button. Let's be able to continue to cover the Vols and all that good stuff and all our opponents. If you've not subscribed, it's on your right, my left. Just hit that little button. I would appreciate it. And right over here's the most recent video that YouTube thinks you'll enjoy. And we'll see you next time on Sports Talk Jay.